Welcome to the Professional Human Podcast. I'm Brian Maierhofer, your host. On today's episode, we had Dan Koe, writer founder. Dan has amassed upwards of 5 million followers over the last 5 years. He is one of the go-to creators in solopreneurship within the one-person business model. I hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks for tuning in. First thing that I wanted to start with is a tweet of yours. You wrote, "My problem with spiritual teachings is they neglect the need and significance of survival." Could you tell me what you mean by that?
In my eyes, or at least from what I noticed when I first got into spirituality, when I first started reading spirituality books, it was always on my mind of, okay, well, if the end goal is to kind of leave society, live on your own, in a sense, in some interpretations, live on your own, meditate, find God, etc., like do that full time, like a monk, in a sense. That was the image that always popped into my somewhat uneducated and young mind at that time. And so that was just the one thing that I was continuously pursuing, where I started to see all of the things that I was doing as almost meaningless, like whatever pursuit it was. If it was a pursuit of something that would have status attached to it, if I wanted to build a business, all of the desires that I had, I interpreted those as they're not supposed to be there. Right. And I know that's not, I know that I was interpreting the spirituality wrong in that sense. But I feel like a lot of people were in my same shoes. You get introduced to this thing, it's very promising. It's, oh, this is the end goal. So why am I doing all of these other things? And why am I doing all of these survival based things? Right. And so as I learned more, grew more, I started to realize that it wasn't necessarily about going off into the woods and meditating all day. It was more so about realizing your part in the greater whole rather than isolating yourself further from the whole. So that's kind of what I see spirituality or purpose as, is being that interconnected part in the greater whole, being a part of something larger than yourself and letting that be your spirituality in a sense.
Right. Because the second half of what you wrote, if you sit around and appreciate what you have for too long, you induce more unnecessary suffering. Right. So just this idea that you end up bypassing some of your human desires, your survival needs or desires through these spiritual concepts that aren't necessarily found or like have a firm
Yeah.
foundation.
Let's say you're stranded or you crash an airplane, you're on a deserted island, you land with a few people there. Think of the TV series Lost. At first, you're just focused on survival. You're focused on getting everything together, making everyone at peace, making sure nobody's going crazy. And then once you kind of get into that groove or that routine for too long of a time, someone eventually creates some form of chaos to make things interesting because things are too normal. The same goes for me in relation to the balance between work and rest, where when people are working, they're constantly craving getting away from work, going on vacation, taking that extended time off. But then they go on vacation. And by the end of that vacation, they usually think, oh, I'm so ready to get back to work. And then when they get to work, it's like a constant living of, when I'm at work, I'm thinking of vacation. When on vacation, I'm thinking of work, rather than realizing that both are a necessary part of life. And the there may be some solutions to, okay, bring mindfulness practice to your work right now, or in like thoroughly be at one with yourself and enjoy the vacation when you're on it. But in my eyes, the survival needs or the survival goals of fulfilling your financial needs and either starting some form
Mhm.
of a business so that you can control what it is that you do for work. And there is a way to do that. A lot of people have the objections that come to mind right then and there. I'll just state right now, of if you're listening to a podcast like this, or you're listening to really any kind of educational material that helps you achieve some goal in your life, I'm an adamant believer that you should probably start some form of a business, and the spiritual journey that that takes you on is going to be greater than just studying spirituality and meditating all day. The highs and lows that doing something, building something in the unknown that is a business and taking on those challenges and learning to navigate those is going to teach you so much more, because that's how you escape the trap of being an armchair philosopher. You're actually building something, right? You can philosophize all day, but if you aren't diving into the unknown, embracing the full range of the human experience, experiencing that full range to begin with by pursuing a goal and struggling to get there, doing that and starting the business is the first step to being able to design the lifestyle that you want to live and intentionally bake in the work and the rest into one, so that you're not craving one or the other.
Right. So both of those needs, both of those functions are being fulfilled within the business because you're building a business that creates a fulfillment of that work need, but it's also designed and oriented towards this lifestyle that provides you the opportunity for proper
Yeah.
rest.
The way that I would put it is like
Yeah.
when you're building something like a business, I'm using business as a very relevant example because work consumes most of people's lives. That's not a bad thing. It's just a thing, right? So starting a business as some kind of first step, once you get further into it, you start to realize that that huge goal of achieving something in business, you need to get other areas of your life in check, or just problems start to stem up everywhere. Like you're not going to be able to focus as much as you want to in the morning if your health isn't on track. You're not going to, again, you're not going to be able to focus very well in the morning if your relationships are a mess and all you can think about is the argument last night. And with something like this, it puts it in your control and it puts it top of mind because it directly impacts the results you can get in your life and how far you are going to go in life. Really depends on the job. I do not want to make it seem like I hate jobs. I do not. I think there are great jobs. I think they're relevant. I think they're great stepping stones a lot of the time for people that want to get into business. But at a job, a lot of the time, if I could put a percentage on it, it'd be like 90% of the time, you're doing the same tasks day in, day out. It's very repetitive, and there isn't too much of a demand for a higher skill level from you or for you to learn something new that allows you to build something further, because there's departments for that. Other employees are taking over what you could learn because they want you to stay focused on this one specific thing. So at work, if your work doesn't demand too much creativity or performance from you, then the other problems in your life aren't going to have as much of an effect. The relationship problems, the health problems, etc. You can just show up, spend 8 hours of your day doing the same tasks, go home, rest, keep this robotic routine in a sense, and never really have to change. But when you start some form of a business, and let's just say starting a business as a metaphor for starting any worthy goal in your life outside of what someone's assigned to you, like going to the gym, getting fit, and making that an actual part of your life, you having to work 8 hours a day is going to make it very inconvenient to get up super early in the morning to go to the gym, or you're just going to be so tired after work to get into the gym. So, all of the good foundational habits in your life of meaningful work, health, relationships, happiness, wealth, etc., it's difficult to actually make substantial progress in those if you haven't started one and started to solve the problems that starting that one has opened up for you. So when you get into fitness, you're going to realize soon enough that you, one, love the challenge, and that in order to truly pursue that, you need to start some form of a business or start to level up spiritually or mentally in order to reach the next levels of fitness. Same goes with starting a business. If you do that first, you're going to realize, okay, if I want to put my all and do something truly creative and impactful with my work, I'm going to have to get my health in check. I'm going to have to get my relationships in check. So all of these things interconnect.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I'm so curious, is this something that you had awareness or insight of before you started your one person business in this journey? or was it revealed to you as you had to sort of solve some of these problems for yourself and realize I saw like a more holistic viewpoint of what you actually needed to trim trim the fat as you
Yeah.
were moving forward?
It was revealed to me slowly, definitely. I got started in the gym first. Some people I know like to say that fitness was a gateway drug into entrepreneurship because they're very similar. There's a lot of parallels you can pull there. But I got into fitness, and going forward, that mindset of like constant improvement or reversing entropy in a sense, and just continuously solving problems in your life, or if something isn't going your way, you're in control of it so you can at least do something about it. That was instilled in me very early, and I always wanted to start some form of a business because fitness and business in a sense gave me the mindset of I don't want to live like everyone else. Going down the average path was the bane of my existence. And so anything that was or a revolt against that, like starting a business or getting fit or things that are generally very good, that's what I pursued instead.
Yeah. And so I'm interested if you could be specific, like what were some of these internal processes or these emotional problems or more holistic problems that you had to solve before you saw that growth in your business?
Growth in my business, as in like when it started taking off or just initially starting?
If what you're saying, your business as the sun of your solar system, where the rest of your schedule, not necessarily your emotional well-being, but your life revolves around the pursuit of growing in this one specific endeavor and needing these internal processes that show up that you need to solve that are more of an internal game, not necessarily a skill issue. What would those be?
Hmm. It's hard for me to explain this. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I always have like low points in terms of learning how to manage emotions. And maybe this is just my mindset around the issue, but it passes. Like it just goes on, where the internal process I have in a sense is to one, when those periods happen, when I feel lost or very chaotic or anxious, relate or stressed out, if something's going wrong in business or if just a fire is lit and you don't really have a way of putting it out, is to just sit and remember that there is really nothing you can do about it at that point. And if there is something you can do, you better start doing it and working to do it and using the stress or anxiety as some kind of fuel to fix the tangible problem you can in business. When it's happened time and time again, they used to affect me more in the past, and I just kept going. Like that was the main thing I did. I didn't really have an internal process. It was like I still want to do this business stuff, so I'm going to keep going with it. But over time, as you go through those cycles, you start to realize that they are just cycles, right? You can start to zoom out and see, okay, this has happened before. What happened last time? And nothing really happened. It was an emotion, it was a wave, and it eventually came down. So I need to do what I can until that next period comes where it's going to oscillate like a wave. It's going to go up. The emotions are going to go up. They're going to go down. And then that's going to free up more space for me to find a bit more focus and find a bit more clarity and find a bit more enjoyment. And the emotions won't be overwhelming my mind in that certain scenario.
Yeah, I love the dualistic framework that you present, this sort of like paradox of life that is found in nature, that is found in spirituality, that you've been able to implement in your business, right? Work and rest, entropy, chaos. Is that this sort of like paradoxical framework that you have? Is that something that you observed in nature, in other people? Like, where did that come from for you?
It's been a combination of like books and listening to people on YouTube, and it slowly me being able to make sense of it because of what I was doing in life. So I would study holism and metaphysics and philosophy, and I would attempt to ground those in what I was doing in business. So I would hear a lesson that a lot of people, when listening to it, would think is rather abstract, but I was able to ground it pretty well in what I was doing, or at least think of a tangible example in my business that allowed me to experience that and therefore kind of metabolize that and understand it on a deeper level, at least I think. In terms of entropy, I didn't know what that term was for the longest time. So the way that I like to think of entropy is just things tending toward chaos. And I've noticed it across like all domains of life, even psychic entropy, like Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talks about. The mind tends toward disorder unless you put energy into a specific goal to reverse that. And so I started to realize, okay, you need a goal that you choose or a hierarchy of goals. I like to think of it as like big picture vision for the future that doesn't have to be completely clear or accurate yet. You make it a bit more clear by deconstructing that into yearly, monthly, weekly, daily goals, and then focusing on the single smallest step you can in order to reach that goal. But the main thing that you're doing in order to reverse entropy or just make progress in your life is solving problems. Like it to my eye in my eyes, it's either you're focused in the flow state on solving a problem, whether you think of it as solving a problem or not, or you're kind of zoomed out appreciating life for what it is in that very open-minded state. Someone say like mindful in a sense. And so solving problems is putting energy into the system and reaching goals in order to improve your life.
It makes so much sense, and I think it was one of the first things that really attracted me to your work was this idea of having your goal as your foundational beacon in which your perception, how you're relating to reality, how you're interpreting
Mm,
data is all filtered through this hierarchy of goals. And without that, there's way more potential for you to slip into that disorder,
yeah.
into that
Yep.
chaos.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it has a lot to do with identity as well. Right. I know you, or maybe if you want to jump in there.
Yeah, how you view the world, your perspective and identity, worldview, perspective, identity, they go very hand in hand. They're very they determine how you perceive certain situations. So I like to think of a worldview or perspective as a frame of goals and problems. So the goal, either conscious or unconscious goals and problems in your life. By unconscious, I mean a goal that was assigned to you, but you probably aren't aware that you're actually pursuing that goal. So and there's like a feedback loop in all of this where worldview, goals and problems. Let's say conscious goal is starting a business. So that's just one goal or one node in the web that is your worldview, perspective, identity. In the day to day, the way you perceive situations are in direct alignment with your survival to reach those goals. So, if starting a business is just one of many conscious goals on my mind, and I'm reading a book or I'm having a conversation, the things and ideas that are going to stick out to me, the information that my brain is going to accept, is going to be the things that allow me to better achieve that goal. So, since I have the goal of starting a business, I'm going to notice either business strategies or if someone is just saying any kind of a sentence, I may pick a business idea out of that. And that's going to benefit my life in some one way or another. Now, if an unconscious goal is sitting there and that's to go to school, get a job, retire at 65, those the information relating to business, all of those ideas aren't going to register for you. You're not going to see them as opportunities or anything else. You're going to see the information that either reinforces or helps you achieve the unconscious goals in your mind. So, going to school, like the opportunities you notice as a kid are, oh, this high paying job sounds interesting. Like, I want to be an anesthesiologist now because I didn't know about that before. I just noticed it when someone was talking about it. I perceive that as an opportunity. I store that information to better aid in my survival. I start pursuing that and collect information along the way in order to get there. And then that continues and compounds. The same thing goes for problems where I'm not going to notice certain problems in my life if I don't have the corresponding goal that would allow me to become aware of that problem. So, if I have a conscious goal and that is like a real goal, it's a part of my identity, like something I am or am going to become. I'm a businessman. That's what I am. In that sense, I will perceive working a job or potential negative aspects of your health that impact your work, I'm going to notice those as problems that need to be solved so that I can continue making progress and surviving my business because I want to survive as an identity. And if starting the business is a part of my identity, those survival processes for noticing information, using it, acting on it, being motivated, etc., are going to click when I notice those problems. I'm going to solve them, make more progress. Now, if I didn't have the goal of starting a business, I'm not going to see those things as problems and they're going to slowly dig away at me. Where if I have the unconscious goals, go to school, get a job, retire at 65, that's my goal. I'm not going to notice working a job as a problem, and I'm going to notice the smaller problems that come along with it as just a part of my life. And then problems, if they don't go unchecked or unsolved, kickstart entropy. You start to decline into chaos very slowly and then potentially all at once. And you find yourself in this massive rut and you're like, okay, where did this all go? Like, what happened? And that's when you get the goal of, okay, start a business. This is all just examples. When I'm saying starting a business, working job, it's just a very relevant example. But then you get the goal, start a business, then you realize, holy crap, those were problems my entire life. And I need to solve these things now. So that's my worldview in a nutshell for reversing entropy by choosing new goals, starting to reprogram your mind to make that a part of your identity so that you can actually notice the problems in your life and start to solve them. And if we want to dig deeper into that in terms of what it takes to reprogram your identity, the process is kind of like, okay, I realize I'm in this position in life that I don't want to be in. I try to set this new goal of, let's say, again, starting a business, but it's not that tied to me yet. Like, I don't really care about it. It's like, yeah, I can set the goal, but like, I don't really want to achieve it. And I'm not really motivated at all. The thing you have to do then is just start to change your environment because I briefly mentioned previously that this is a feedback loop. So the goals that you have start to reinforce itself because it shapes the information that you consume. And the information you consume starts to change the ideas that are top of mind or just in the operating system that is your mind or identity. So you start to change who you are. That becomes more reinforced. It becomes more a part of who you are. And then you start to perceive the world differently because of that. So you set the goal, start a business, not that motivating. That's when you just start to make small and subtle changes that you can make. You change the people you follow on social media. You change the books that are lying around in your house. You potentially change the music you listen to if that's relevant at all. You change the conversations that you have with friends. You change the movies that you watch on TV. You start to change these little things and you start to become that person where if I decide to sit through a video on like just beginner how to start a business, I start the momentum and the energy to I start the momentum in putting energy into the system that I want to create that's going to reverse entropy for the problem in my life. So you start to put energy into it. You start to form those new grooves in your mind and you start to slowly fall deeper and deeper into learning and becoming that person and acquiring the skills that give you the clarity and motivation to reach the new goal that you set for yourself. And by then, the goal is very potent and has a high gravity because it's just become more of a part of your life.
And on the contrary, having this unconscious goal, your identity remains super static, really based off of the past
Yeah.
conditioning, right? What's available to you in the future is extremely narrow. Your acuity in being able to recognize and interpret the new data that will mold a more dynamic identity towards your goal, you don't have that opportunity.
Yes. That's another thing is the goals evolve or they change like as you go forward and you have better information to act from. So if your goals evolve, that's a good thing. Unconscious goals don't really evolve because you're just doing the same thing day after day, right? If the goals are assigned to you, they're assigned to you. Like you didn't choose them. Therefore, when you achieve it, you can't really choose the next one. The unconscious goals aren't really achievable. And even if you do achieve it, then the next one's just assigned to you because you're on that path. So that's another thing about the hierarchy of goals or just like vision deconstructed into yearly, monthly, weekly, daily goals is that when you achieve each one, there's another one. Your vision for your life is a vision for your life. It's an infinite game. All of the deconstructed goals are just little quests in that game that keep you in it and you change direction as you go. You don't know exactly what the result of your life is going to be when you quote unquote achieve the goal because the goals are just there for guides. They're kind of just there for clarity. You're not too focused on them. You kind of set them for direction and then you focus on the day to day action and habits and the information you're consuming and all of that stuff in order to achieve them. And then you kind of self reflect and realize, okay, am I on the right path? What went well? What didn't go well? And you start to course correct. You remind yourself of your vision goals at that time, see if anything's changed, iterate on them a bit, and then you just continue moving, moving, moving. And the thing about this is the hierarchy of goals bringing focus to your days and helping eliminate distractions, forming the systems and acting within the systems, and the consistent flow of information just in your day to day life of good information going in, good creation going out. All three of those things are just prime candidates for entering the flow state or some degree of the flow state. So when I say survival or survival in comparison to, let's say, spirituality, survival is very spiritual when it collapses into the spirituality, where by spirituality, we mean you're a part of something greater than yourself, but then you think of the flow state and what that is, and that's becoming at one with the task that you're doing, or just the situation that you're in, becoming a part of it, becoming at one with what's happening right then and there. So the survival collapses into the spiritual when all things align and you are truly focused on solving the problem and reversing entropy. So the key to life in my eyes is one, understanding entropy on like a day to day or mental level and really leaning into that as much as you can. Because in my eyes, that's what the universe does in a sense, just by its unconscious natural processes that you can see it going through with stars exploding, spreading atomic nuclei throughout the galaxy to help the formation of other stars. Like the creation, destruction of it all, the ebbs and flows, that's like you can see entropy, negentropy flowing there. And humans, to help aid in that process, in a sense, are noticing the entropy that's going on in the world and attempting to reverse it by building tools and creations and other things that lead to evolution and technological progress. And it feels incredibly good to create. So we can consider creation reversing entropy, creating an alignment with something greater than yourself feels so freaking good. Like that's just what progress feels like. And I feel like that's something, if we lean into it, we will not only live a good life, but we can say that we've left something behind.
There's so many things that you just laid out that I would want to pull on. And whether you recognize it or not, but when we were having this conversation about identity, static versus dynamic, et cetera, that process is a therapeutic process. Like that's what I do with my clients, whether you realize that or not, you know? So incredible. And I love, your ability to make the adjustments within goals. Because people will set a goal and then they're like a
Mhm.
horse on a horse track where they have the blinkers on and they have no peripheral vision for the new data that's coming in or for that goal that desires shifting and molding according to this new dynamic identity that you have, right? Um, but so this topic, as far as creating in alignment, maybe with the universe or solving universal needs or collective needs, uh, how does that relate to level of mind? So, do you categorize levels of mind? And first of all, where did this framework come from for you? Did it come from that Albert Einstein
Yes,
quote?
yes and no. Where he put it well there. I actually still don't know if he actually said that or if it's just something they like compiled from it. So the Einstein quote is, you can't solve a problem from the same level of mind that created it. And then that instantly reminds me of like, okay, levels of consciousness or stages of consciousness or levels of energy from like Frederick Dodson. And I don't necessarily categorize them. I just think of it in a very connected sense to what we talked about with entropy, is that in order to solve a problem, you kind of have to zoom out beyond it, acquire the skill and knowledge necessary, or just see it from a new perspective in order to solve it. And so by simply solving problems, you expand your mind, you allow for new opportunities, you kind of expand deeper into the unknown, and there's more potential and opportunities available for you to notice there. There's new goals for you to set, there's new data for you to change direction in the goals that you're already going towards. And so that's the exact thing. And I like to present this entire kind of abstract framework that we're going through as just a way for people to start changing and experiencing more enjoyment in their lives and getting out of that stage of feeling lost. Is just think of the problems in your life that are there that you may be glancing over, right? You may, and if we go to the mindset of the person like myself in the past who got into studying things like spirituality, if that's you, you may be thinking so big picture that you're just neglecting the survival goals that need to be solved in order to reach that next level of mind that allows you to solve the more holistic problems and achieve the more holistic goals or the higher level goals. So, if I could get one thing across here, is really attempt to notice the problems in your life without considering them shallow or just not worth pursuing. Right? You may not, like, in terms of getting a nice body or getting healthy or just getting in the gym, you may see that, your mind may immediately label that as vain or like pursuing status by doing that. So you're like, ah, that's not really that worthy. Like, I want to go do this higher, more noble thing. And it's like, you can't really reach that level until you solve the baseline survival problems in your life, which is starting the business, getting into the gym, or just exercising in general, going on a run, however you want to exercise. It's self experimentation at that point in whatever you think or whatever you find most beneficial for your life and your goals. And same with the business model you start and the skills you learn and all of those things. So, solve a problem in your life, continue solving the problems in your life to experience growth and tap into those higher levels of not only consciousness, but potential goals and problems that are available to you there, and skills, knowledge, et cetera. It all compounds. And then from there, you're just in a much more valuable and leverageable position in your life, even when you solve those first few goals. Like, what do you see online? What is the most popular thing? It's health, wealth, relationships, happiness. It's people talking about fitness. It's people talking about business. It's people talking about mental health. It's people talking about relationship advice. And if you're not in a relationship, it's like, okay, how do you get the girls? How do you get the guy? I actually don't know if that's a thing on the female side of things, but on the guy side of things, it's just super prevalent. It's like how to get 10 girls' numbers these days. And those are the videos with the most views. Why? Because that problem isn't solved yet, like on a collective level, because the individuals are stuck consuming the information, but not really doing anything about it. So, this is kind of a shift in the topic, but people will start to think, okay, well, there's too much of that information because the information isn't helping. my idea and philosophy of everyone being able to start their own business, especially with social media and the internet being here, is that people learn best from those that they relate the most with. So, in my eyes, the problem isn't that there is too much information. My problem is there aren't enough people that other people can relate with, so that the lessons hit so hard that they can't help but act, or they gain so much clarity that they can't help but act. So we need more personalities. We need a more direct connection and kind of like a decentralized school system, if you will, of people sharing the knowledge they've picked up in the pursuit of their goals, so that people with a very similar and meshing identity can follow those people, really benefit from the lessons that they're passing down. And each person kind of has their own audience of people of a very similar level of mind until they advance and go to the next teacher or become the teacher. And then I may be completely delusional with that, but at the same time, I do feel like there's no harm in that. That's for sure. And a lot of people can benefit from it just in terms of the gains in their life.
Yeah, it becomes this like cyclical
Mhm.
process. Because as I was consuming a whole lot of your content, I felt some categories reveal themselves within the way you speak on level of mind, right? Survival needs, um, then this sort of like leverage status game sort of thing. And I also remember something that you wrote about rejecting status and how that's just another
Yeah.
form of chasing status. And it almost feels like accepting some of these human qualities that can be so bypassed by our spiritual pursuits as well, right? That like we all have an innate orientation towards some aspect of status within community. And so then from that piece, like creative needs, creation needs there. And then this final piece, where maybe this sort of collective need on which you spoke on already a little bit. And so my question to you, if that does that register at all? And then B, do you think that the universe or spirit or maybe some higher power works through people in this manner?
Interesting. I like those categories. I could definitely see it as survival needs, status needs, creative needs, and then collective needs or growth needs. Growth needs is like Maslow's type deal. I could see those definitely being a thing, but at the same time, I see them as all interconnected. I rather than seeing it as a hierarchy, I kind of see it as a matrix where like survival needs they can, or rather than like a matrix, think of it as like a skill tree in a video game where it's like, yeah.
It's like a
You
fractal.
yeah, you go into let's say you get into the gym and you start improving in that domain and you solve the first survival based problem there, and then you advance to the next level and then the next and then the next, and then you start to realize, okay, well, like my fitness is kind of being stunted because I don't have enough time to dedicate to it because I'm working all day. So okay, that's the problem I need to solve next, and in this matrix of problems, so to say. And so you start doing the business stuff and you start survival there. So it's like you're leveling them up at different rates based on what your interests are and just like how you go through the process. And that's kind of what makes you unique in a sense. And yeah, so they slowly increase. And for different people, different levels are going to be more prevalent because some people are naturally going to become like more known for fitness. That's going to be their prime priority in life. They're going to be the fit dude that you see, and it's like, oh yeah, that guy's life revolves around fitness. Then there's going to be the Alex Hormozy guys who their life revolves around business. And then there's going to be the, I don't know who a big relationship person is. Maybe Young Pueblo. Young Pueblo is like the mixture of relationship and spirituality. So he has like two going for him. And then whatever your highest level across the different domains in your life are at the time, that combination is your niche in a sense. So we can get into you are the niche, but that's what you're good at and that's what you're attracting people to help them with, and you're very good at helping people with that thing that mesh with their similar levels.
That makes a lot of sense. Tell me a little bit about the you are the niche. I know it feels a little contrary to what a lot of other people
Yeah.
espouse.
So the preface there is to really think of how the business information in your head got there and what context it's relevant in. So, with social media being relatively new and client acquisition on social media, especially being pretty freaking new, like this entire domain of being a creator or building an audience, it's like it's been around to an extent for a bit of time, but it's never really been so widespread until now. And just how you interact on the platforms are very different from how you did in the past. Before that, what we saw, the general level of the collective business mind, was like agency work or freelance work or client work. Like starting an online business usually involved either building a digital product of sorts or creating some form of value ladder. Let's say digital products, freelance services, coaching services, consulting services. But the way that you made money doing those things were through either manual cold outreach or specific paid ad strategies or Facebook groups and social media. That doesn't completely transfer over correctly, because in order to succeed in those domains like paid ads and other things, you do need a hyper specific target customer or target avatar in order to find them in those places, because you have a specific strategy for those things. You literally need to put in target demographics in Facebook ads or have a custom audience in there for doing those types of things, or you need to find a Facebook group where there's people hang out, et cetera, et cetera. On social media, when you're writing content, let's say I retweet your post, and let's say I vaguely have an audience that you want. Like there's going to be almost zero people that have the exact target audience that you want in their audience. They're going to have some, sure, but when you share it, what happens then? Then other people share it. Then other people share it. Then other people share it. And soon enough, it's just in the middle of a random sea of people that you have no idea who they are or what they do. So trying to control the customer avatar on with organic social media growth just is a losing bet. And you can get very specific. Like you can have a specific target customer on social media and build a rather niche audience fairly slowly and make a lot of money. I'm not saying this is binary where if you don't go my route, you make zero money. I'm just saying it's another potential option for the people who want to talk about their interests, want to be themselves, and want to be able to pivot and evolve as they inevitably change. So, with that, I'm more of a fan of going a bit broader in the content that you write and the products that you create. And social media is kind of like your top of funnel. Your social media is kind of like your survival level of mind, documented online, where in order to get spread to new people and relate with a lot more people and attract the relevant people, the things that you see do well on the platform are the survival stuff. It's getting into the gym, losing fat, getting laid, having better relationships, things like that. And so leaning into those allows you to attract the beginner level audience of what I'm going to coin as your public school. And then as they get deeper into your funnel through your lead magnets and through your newsletters and through your products, you're raising them up those levels. You're helping them become a more holistic and integrated person throughout. So, in terms of you being the niche and who you're attracting, it's the goals and problems that shape your worldview or your vision and your anti vision. So, your vision is like starting a business, having work that you love to do every morning. Think of your ideal day and map that out. You're trying to attract people that are pursuing a very similar ideal day. Anti vision is like, okay, what's the bane of my existence? That's in my eyes, when I was younger, it was getting a job, because I knew how that impacted my life. It was being unhealthy and potentially overweight and other things like that. So when I start to illustrate this stuff online by giving people advice, in my case, for how to get into creative work, what skills you should learn, um, different ideas that resonate with me and sharing them, because the only reason I was able to perceive those ideas as important is because of the certain goals that I had in my mind. I share the ideas that are important to me because that's like just a quick and easy way to attract people with the same goals as you. Because you notice that information because you had the goals that allow you to perceive it, right? So you are the niche by simply just talking about the things that are important to you because your worldview or identity are the things that allow you to perceive that as important. So with all of that mumbo jumbo out of there, to make it extremely simple is just talk about what's important to you, right? Read stuff, go to the gym, contemplate some stuff, reflect on your journey, get more idea flow, like have information going through your head and being able to catch an important idea in that stream and then being able to put it out on social media in an impactful way by learning to write in some cases or just learning to persuade or other things like that. And you slowly start to build a bigger audience on social media. And then this is where the more niche audiences come into play. So for the people that grew up in the agency or freelancing world of the past, where it's like manual client acquisition, you can think of your personal brand as like a large audience that you then turn into a niche audience. So the lead magnets that you create, where I've had a planner, so productivity, I've had how to build a website, I've had uh, like one person business fundamentals. So the lead magnets that you create over time, you're not just creating one, you're creating different ones to cover different aspects of the brand vision you're trying to create. They get into there and then they slowly start to get into other products. And so this isn't something that you can monetize very quickly with it by creating one product, one service, one audience, one lead magnet, et cetera, focusing on that. But then down the road, as you pivot and evolve, you're starting to create this just ecosystem or school for people very similar to you to go through.
Right. So the advice is talk about what's important to you, right? But in a manner in which there is public interest in what's important to you.
No, that touches a lot on the point of like your writing sucks because you can't make your ideas interesting to other people. And the thing that I see with a lot of writers who like or just people in general who come and they hear that advice and they're like, "Yes, I love that. Like I can just be myself online." The caveat is that you kind of can't. You if you just go and it's like, okay, I see people do this a lot where they start posting on social media and it's just very esoteric, it's very spiritual, it's very philosophical, and then it doesn't hit because it's just not that out there. That's you're speaking from a lens that you understand now, but if you're trying to help people that are at your beginner level, you're trying to help people recreate your journey in a better way, they're not going to understand that yet. So you have to talk from a very beginner level mind in a sense where the way that some copywriters or writing advice puts it is you need to explain it to a 5-year-old. Like whatever it is that you want to talk about, explain it so a 5-year-old can understand it, but don't let that take away. Don't write at a 5th grade level, just explain it to them like a 5th grader would understand. And then that allows you to kind of zoom out and think, okay, would a 5th grader understand all of this like resistance in the mind jargon and however you would frame that? Like you have to talk to the people that are at your level or before your level on social media. Then when they get to the newsletter, that's where I feel like you can go a bit longer. You can let your creative desires pour out. But at the same time, if people don't resonate with it, especially if they're like you may you I would consider attempting to improve the skill of writing. And that usually comes with frameworks and templates and using things as training wheels until it becomes a habit and then you get better at that skill. Then the common objection is like, well, I don't want to like catch attention and use these frameworks and talk about like a problem and then a story and then actionable steps. Like the step-by-step framework to writing just feels rather inauthentic to me. And it's like you have to learn how to communicate effectively if you want to be an effective communicator. That's just it's in the name. But if you want to impact people, you have to think of writing as not only pursuing a selfish goal of like making more money and talking about what you want to talk about, but you have to think of it, you have to have the selfless end of it as well, where you're helping others and you're okay with changing how you word things so that you can get a very similar message across and it can have more impact at scale. And then people start to follow along. People start to be impacted. You become a better writer for that. You start to be able to articulate your thoughts better, and it slowly just compounds. So I'll tie in one more thing there is that solving problems in your life, like problem solving or reversing entropy, as I said at the start, applies to everything. Like this isn't just about, oh, I need to get into the gym or, oh, I need to start a business. If your writing sucks and you aren't growing on social media or your audience isn't growing or whatever it may be, it's because you're not seeing that there's a problem there and that you need to solve it because you have this goal of build an audience, start the business, have the profitable business, and do it all in a way that's meaningful to you. You have those goals. So you have to be able to identify the problem that prevents you from achieving those goals. And if you only focus on the unconscious goal of, oh, I just want to write about what I want to write about in the way that I want to write about it, you're forgetting all of the goals that you set before and you're getting stuck in this trap that just isn't going to be good for you. So solve problems across the board in every domain of life at all times, and you'll find progress and enjoyment.
Beautiful. I'm curious, are there other aspects, piggytailing off of the you are the niche, of what you promote or expose in business and life that you feel like people take out of context?
Can you repeat that one more time?
So, with foundational aspects of your business that you promote and encourage people to adopt and follow, are there any of those that you feel people take out of context?
There are definitely examples.
Like, for example, this you are
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah,
niche. You are a niche of
yeah.
one.
People take it out of context in the sense that they think that I think that niching down doesn't matter, is just completely irrelevant, and it's context dependent. Like I've had a comment one time that I saw where it's like, I think the main problem here is that Dan just doesn't understand what a niche is. And maybe that's true. I don't know, but I feel like a niche is a a group of people that you can help the most, or just a group, right? It's dictated by interests or topics or goals or problems or whatever it may be. And the reason you want to attract a niche or go into a niche is so that you can tailor your product or service around them. What I'm saying with you are the niche is you are attracting people to your goals and interests and helping them achieve that goal and interest because you've already done it before. Like by going the you are the niche route, you get to avoid some of the time the traditional market research, which is just painstakingly annoying if you do it correctly. That you get to avoid and skip most of that process simply because you can just study yourself, right? If you have the self awareness, self reflection, you understand your journey, you were able to systemize your process along the way. And let's say you pass it down in the form of a product or service, then you just attract people by talking about the problems or goals that you had. Because the entire purpose of creating a target customer within a specific niche is so that you can write on that customer avatar in the framework, okay, they have this problem, this problem, this problem. These problems are the most burning. I need to target these in my advertising. Now, if you just solve the problems that you had in your life, I mean, if you just target the problems you had in your life, like getting a job was the bane of my existence. I could start a tweet out with that, and I guarantee it would attract like-minded people who could benefit from my products right now. Right? That's what I'm talking about is just solving your own problems and selling the solution. Boom. That's the key. Solving your own problems for progress of yourself, selling the solution for progress of others.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Monetizing your life story. What about the
Mm.
4-hour workday? How does that fold into when you're first starting out to where you're at now? I know you began this process while you were working a 9 to
Yes.
5.
Yeah. I did it a bit. I started things a bit earlier where I was working on digital art, all of the quote unquote failed business models, when in reality, it was kind of just like things that I started. I never really tried to get customers for some. It's just like I started an endeavor the intention was there to start a business, and then I never really started it, aside from some, like the e-commerce stores that I started. I ran ads for those, saw like one sale and got annoyed. But things like that. I started a bunch, and then when those didn't work out for me, the only other option was to use the web design knowledge that I gained along the way to get an entry level job as a web designer. So, as the web designer, I was still adamant on getting out of that job as fast as possible because I was like, I didn't want to get this job in the first place. Like, if I don't get out as fast as possible, then I'm going to end up like everyone else. I was very good at exaggerating where my life would end up if I didn't do a certain thing. Like, I thought, okay, if I don't get out of this job, like right freaking now, my life's over. It's done. I'm dead. Right. Same thing went for when I was starting on Twitter. It's like if I miss a day in terms of writing a tweet, I'm done. Like my life's over. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'd be up at night just typing on my phone, finishing the tweet. But the thing with how long I worked during the weekday when I was at the job, it was probably 1 hour on average because that's all I had, right? I'd wake up, I'd get to my computer, I'd work a bit until I had to check in. And then when I checked in, it's like I had to do the work at work. Sometimes I was able to go over and work like 2 to 4 hours before I had procrastinated my work at the job for long enough to be able to do that. But the thing that comes to my mind when people ask, well, like how long did you work at the beginning? And it's like, if I work a 9 to 5, do I have 12 hours a day to work? That's just not how it works. Like you have 1 hour, you have one, potentially 2 to 4 hours, depending on how relaxed your job is. That's all you have. And that's okay. You don't need to do more work when you're starting out because you don't have the entire business built out that an entrepreneur does that he has to spend more time on maintaining, right? All you have to do is focus on just having a product or service and getting customers. That doesn't take too long, right? Especially on social media. It's like, okay, what are the lever moving tasks? Write tweets. If you've practiced that a bit, that takes less than 15 minutes a day for 2 to 3 tweets, right? That's it. 15 minutes a day. Whoa. Okay. How do you grow on Twitter? You build connections, you build a tribe, you network with other people, you reply to other people. If you time block that, that's 45 minutes, maybe. You could probably cut it down to 30 minutes, maybe an hour. If you go the paid growth route, like with just paid reposts in general, which I think is the smart route. If you're business minded and understand ROI or return on investment, you understand, okay, I'm building this audience by having other people repost me. It's not unethical in the fact that they're reposting you because that's how people would find your content to begin with. You would pop up on their timeline, they'd see your content, they'd follow you. For business people, that's how social media ghostwriters and managers grow accounts. That's just how you do it. It doesn't make the person getting the paid reposts any less of a person. It makes them a smarter person who makes more progress because they understand the game. But beyond that, if you go the paid repost route, then you don't really have to network or do the engagement or anything like that. So you're writing content for 15 minutes a day. You're growing on social media because people are sharing that content. And so what, 30 minutes a day to grow an audience on social media? Then you need, and then if you want to take it further, that's what you do at the start. You don't need the newsletter to start. You don't need the funnel. You don't need the lead magnet. All you would need is like a questionnaire for a coaching service or a freelance service. Send people to that by plugging in the replies. So 5 minutes extra a day to promote your service under one post that someone else shared. So there's more traffic going to it. They sign up for that. You reach out to them, you get them on a call. Maybe the call takes 30 minutes to an hour. That would happen like 3 to 4 times a week if you can manage that much. You close them, boom, you're making an income. Like it doesn't take that long if you focus on the right things. Beyond that, it's like, okay, now that I'm getting more into this, I'm better at it. It's taking less time because I've just gotten better at the skill. Now I'm starting the newsletter, and that takes quite a bit longer, depending on how long you go. If it's only a 500 word newsletter, then you can bang that out in 30 to 60 minutes one day. For me, it's like I write probably an hour and a half every morning for 5 days to get a long newsletter out. But you don't have to do that in order to see results from building an email list and a newsletter. The thing where a lot of work comes into play here, especially in my life, is when you're building something new, but it follows the principle of, like, from Jack Butcher of build once, sell twice, where if it's a lead magnet or a digital product or just the first iteration of your service, yeah, that's going to take a bit more time. If you can take a weekend and pull in a 12-hour day, awesome. If it takes you an extra hour in the morning to build that out consistently over a month, awesome. However you want to fill it out. But once you get the lead magnet in place or you get the product in place, then, like, the time that you spend on that, the 8 to 12 hours, however much time, probably a lot longer than that, you go back down to baseline. Now you're still at the 30 to 60 minutes a day just growing on social media and promoting your product or service. And if you're happy with how much you're making from that and how much traffic you're generating, then boom, you have the 1 hour workday. If you're not and you want to build further and build more things and start new companies and diversify to different platforms, start on YouTube, that takes more time because you're recording videos. And if you don't have an editor, editing takes a lot of freaking time. But that's why I recommend starting on X, because you're just writing posts. Like, you don't need to create images, you don't need to create videos. It's just writing posts. But and same with Instagram or anything if you just copy paste the post to Instagram. But that's kind of the 4-hour workday in a nutshell. And the reason I think of it as 4-hour workday is because I don't have the studies or even the statistics top of mind, but you only have so much focus in a day. The sweet spot is usually around 4 to 6 hours. So let's just say 4 hours of focus, unless you're on performance enhancing drugs or some kind of nootropic. But even cool, if you want to work longer doing that, cool. Or slam coffee all day, or you're not doing too busy of work, whatever it may be. Let's say 4 hours. Now, if I identify as a person who works 4 hours a day, that's a goal of mine, then I'm going to spot any problems that prevent me from working 4 hours a day as a problem. So if I have client work that's spilling over and my survival stress response goes off because I've worked 6 hours that day and it's like, crap, okay, I need to do something about this. That's how you grow in business. That's how you make things more efficient. The person who is okay with working 12 hours a day isn't going to notice the busy work they're doing. They're not going to notice how much specific work crosses over into other areas of their life and makes it worse. So if I work 4 hours a day, I identify with that. I notice that, let's say I have 2 calls that go over the amount of time I want to work that day. I see those as a problem. Okay, now I have to think creatively. That opens up the opportunity for creative thinking and leverage and systemizing what you do. So now I'm thinking, okay, I've reached a point where I'm working a bit over the amount of time I want to. My audience has grown to this level since then. So maybe it's time to productize the service so I can take out those hour-long calls. I can create a curriculum. I can still charge a bit more because I can run something like a cohort or group coaching. So I can dumb those 5 calls a week down to 1 call a week for the group coaching. And then beyond that, once my audience grows further, I can start something like a cohort, or I can solely do digital products, or I can start a new business and hire a team. So it all evolves once you get to these certain levels, and you have to think creatively and systemize what it is that you're doing in order to continue working 4 hours a day. So in my eyes, the 4-hour workday philosophy is less about like, oh, I only work this much a day. It's an identity you can adopt to identify problems in your business faster so you can be more creative, see faster results, and just become more efficient. And because of it, you have lower work times unless you actually want to fill those up. So that rant makes sense.
So much sense. So much sense. It's a
Mm,
guardrail
mhm.
for your business and your
Yeah.
time. Um, I want to hear a little bit more about Cortex identity, shifting from one person business to founder. Do you identify as founder these days?
I'd say founder. Yeah, co-founder.
And how has this shifted things for you and your sort of your mental models, your mental
It's
systems?
been very interesting. I'm used to it now. I really enjoy it. I've enjoyed it since the start. It's very rewarding to just make progress as a unit and for everyone to be on the same vision. Like, that's kind of how I see a normal business or multi-person business is rather than like a singular vision, it's more of a collective vision, right? Where the entire team, when high agency, when relatively small as we are, all of the members on the team are fairly high agency. They're good at identifying problems and just solving them, like without being told to do so. So when everyone acts autonomously in alignment with a clear vision for what the app is going to be and the impact that it's going to have, it's just really cool to see everyone working in unison and for everyone to be on board. Like it's just a really good feeling. And they're really cool people. Like Joey and I have been up to Toronto a few times, maybe like 3, 4 times now. We're going up soon again. But even just meeting and talking with them, like I love all of the devs. I love like everyone that works for Cortex right now. They're just fun to be around. And I am dreading the day if and when it comes where our team is going to have to expand and the culture is going to be diluted a bit, because right now it's like we respect each other, we understand each other's roles in the business of what we're doing, but at the same time we're able to be good friends and joke with each other and nobody's too serious. And I don't know, when the company grows that could easily turn into an HR issue. So there's things like that where we're enjoying it while we can, and it's just a good time.
Yeah, super excited. I'm looking forward to seeing how it all comes together. I mean, it's been such an instrumental process of my journey and using the software. It's been incredible.
Yeah, and the thing is with that is like we know what it's going to become and we know the next updates that are coming out. So when people say like, "Oh, I benefit from it now," it's like I do too. I write in it every morning, but I'm still like there's so much, like it's going to be 10 times better, like you don't even realize it, but I can't keep saying that. So it's I don't know, it's really fun to see the product evolve. Where yesterday was actually our 1 year anniversary being like an actual formed company. And so I was looking back through the initial designs for Cortex, and they look so bad compared to now. Even the first iteration of Cortex that I'm pretty sure you had access to before the major like pane redesign and things like that. I was watching back through that, and it's like it just looks so bad. And we thought it was the coolest thing ever at the time. So it's really interesting to see how the iterations take place, and then we look back and we're like, how could we have thought that in the first place, right? And so this is the other thing, if we want to tie this all together, it's like just solving like, yeah, it's going to suck at first, like you're afraid of doing something because it's going to suck, but it has to suck in order for it to not suck. Like you can't make the second iteration without the first, right? And you can't even see the potential for the second iteration. You can't even have the idea for it unless the first is there. So unless you build something tangible, unless you start the thing, you're not going to be able to reach level 2. And until you do that, like you're just closing yourself off to all of these ideas that just aren't available to you. It's like in a video game where you can't start the quest because you're level 10 and not level 11 and it requires level 11. It's like you literally just can't do that quest. Like everything in there is closed off to you. And so I want you to realize like how insane that is, that you're just missing out on these little pockets of ideas that create so much more knowledge and just interest for you in life.
Yeah, it's the only way to get a new skin. You got to shed the old one.
Yep.
100%. Good, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Dan. I appreciate you. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you over the last handful of months, and
Yep.
I appreciate the
Likewise, man.
insight.
That was fun. Thank you.